Hello and welcome back to another section. In this section, we're going to look at data types. In JavaScript, data types define the kind of values a variable can hold. For example, a number is different from a text and JavaScript treats them differently. Here is a simple example. Let age be equal to 25. Let name be equal to Tema. Console.log age, name. Now we can see 25 and then we can see Tema in quotes. Age stores a number and name stores a string, which is a text. JavaScript has two main categories of data types. We have the primitive and non-primitive data types. Primitive data types stores simple values and are immutable and cannot be changed directly. Let's start with numbers. We have age here and it is set to 25. We could also have quantity and it could be set to 3, and we have price set to 55.5. Now we can run age, quantity and price. We have 25, 3 and 55.5. So the data type for this is numbers, regardless of it being an integer or a decimal, and it supports mathematical operations like plus, minus, division and multiplication. Next, we are going to look at strings. So let's say name is equal to Tema, and we can do console.log name. Now we can see the result, or what is printed on the screen is Tema. Strings are enclosed in quotes, which we can see right here. You can use a single quote or a double quote, it still works. Next, we are going to look at Boolean, and Boolean is just a true or false statement. So let's say we want our program to confirm if something is running. We could just use something like this. Let's make it more descriptive. Let's say it's raining. Maybe we want our app to check if it is raining, and if it is set to true, it should perform a certain task, or maybe tell us to bring an umbrella. So let me just write an if statement checking if it is raining and it should do something. So in this case, if it's raining is true, our program should tell us to bring an umbrella. So what we have here is we set is raining to true, which is a Boolean, and then we set an if statement. If it is raining, then our program should prompt us to bring an umbrella. Now what do you think would happen here when we run this code? Well, true is not defined, and the reason why we are getting that error is because we used capital T. Now let's run again. So you can see in our console we have bring an umbrella. Now if we set is raining to false and then run, you can see undefined. Nothing is being printed on our console. That is because we don't have any condition for when it is not raining. So this is a Boolean, and it is used to set if a statement is true or false, and this is part of primitive JavaScript data type. So the only value this can hold is either true or false, or we could just use 1 or 0. 0 is false and 1 is true. So if I set 1, it means true. If I set 0, it means false. So 1 means true, it is raining, and it's going to tell us to bring an umbrella. Next, we are going to look at undefined data type, and this is basically a variable that has no value. So let's say let's not assigned. By default we would set equal to and then specify maybe a string, but in this case it is called an undefined data type, so it doesn't have any value. We just have a variable name created, and the name of the variable is not assigned, and there is no value to this variable. So now if we print on our console, what do you think would happen here? Nothing, basically. And that is because a value is not assigned to our variable even though it is declared. Now if we want to change the value of this variable later in our code, we could simply just set not assigned to, maybe it is now assigned. Now if we run our code, you can see it is now printing it is now assigned. That is because initially we declared our variable and now we assigned a value to our variable. Next, we are going to look at null data type, and this is a variable that is intentionally set to an empty value. Let's say let empty value equal to null, and console.log empty value. You can see on our console the result is null, which is basically used when we want to clear a variable. If we have the same variable earlier and we set it to maybe some characters or a sentence, and we later want to clear the contents of that variable, we can use the keyword null to empty that variable. So what do you think would happen here? It is going to echo null. That is because we first assigned the value, this is YouTube, to the variable empty value, and then we later assigned the value of null to the same variable, which is going to clear out the variable. So if we run this, you can see it is null. But if we set console.log up after declaring the variable and run, you can see this is YouTube, which is the initial value of that variable empty value, and then we now set it to null, which is the second part, which is showing null on our console. Next, we're going to look at symbol, which are unique identifiers. Let's say we set id1 to symbol and then id, and then we set id2 to symbol id. Now in your eyes, if you look at these two variables, you can see that the contents are the same, but by using symbols they are going to be unique. Even if they contain the same text, symbols are always unique. So if we try to check if id1 is equal to id2, then we should have a text on our screen, they are same. So what should happen here is if id1 is equal to id2, which is true by mere looking at it, but in this case it is going to echo false. This is because these are unique identifiers regardless of them having exactly the same identical content. Let's have an else statement. If they are not, then we should have a print statement that says they are unique. Run, and you can see we have they are unique. That means this statement is not true and this else statement is true, which means they are unique. So even if they contain the same text, symbols, they are always unique. Next, we are going to look at the non-primitive data types, and these are data types that holds complex values and mutables that can be modified. And the first we're going to look at is objects, which is for structural data. So let's say we have a variable called person, and that variable contains the name of that person, which is Tema. It also contains the age of Tema, which let's say 25, and his Tema is student. let's set the value of that to false. And as we can see, this contains key value pairs. We have name and we have age and we have student. Now to get the value, we could simply say console.log and then person, which is a variable name, dot name. And in this case, we are going to get the name Tema. So now let's make this a little simpler. Let's say we have a variable named Tema, right? And inside this variable Tema, we have the details of Tema, from the name to age to country and so on and so forth. Now if we want to get any details from this variable named Tema, we can just tap into it by saying tema.age. Now if we run this code, we can see Tema has age of 25, and by using this method we could extract more data from this variable called Tema. Now this data type is called object and it contains key value pairs, which is useful for grouping related data. Next we are going to look at an array. So let's say we have colors, and in this array we have red, we have blue, and we have green. Now if we run console.log colors, you can see we have an array with 0 is red, 1 is blue, and 2 is green. In JavaScript, counting starts from 0. Arrays use square brackets, and values inside an array are indexed starting from 0. So we have red, blue, and green, and the length of the array is 3. Now I'm going to show you how to find a data type, and to do that we are going to use typeof to check the variable's data type. Now to check the data type, let's say we have colors here, this array, and we want to check the data type of array. We can simply type in typeof and then space and then whatever we want to print. In this case it is colors. Now if we run this, you can see this is an object. Now let's do it for others as well. So we are starting with the first, which is console.log typeof, and from what we can see this is a string. From what we can see this is a number. From what we can see this is a boolean. From what we can see this is null, and this is also undefined, which means that is declared but nothing inside. This is an object and this is an array. So let's run this. So you can see we have string, number, boolean, object. This is a null data type, which is basically intentional empty value, and it is seen as an object. And this is undefined, which is basically a variable with no value, is not defined. This is an object, which is for structured data, and this is an array, which is seen as an object as well. So to check the data type, you have to specify typeof and then the variable name or the content. Now let's do a quick recap. We have primitive data type, and it consists of numbers from decimal to fractions. We have strings, which contains text. We have boolean, which can either be true or false. We have undefined variables, which are variables that are declared but not assigned. We have null, which are intentional empty values. We have symbols, which are unique values for identifiers. And for the non-primitive data types, we have objects, which are structured data with key value pairs. And we have arrays, which are used to list values. And lastly, we can use typeof to check data types in JavaScript. So that is all for this section.